I'd like to call Saline City Council meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a couple of changes to the agenda. We, under item 1163, the title, Foley Bridge Replacement, Mill Pond Park, delete CMI grant project, because it's not actually part of the CMI grant. And then under discussion, we're going to be adding per handout, actually, 3 items. House Bill 4274, we have a beginnings of a resolution. I'll talk to you about the league and resolutions and what we're trying to do to respond to that, and also their issue advisory, and then a little discussion on the Saline Historic Downtown Alliance, and then I also have a handout on the Michigan Urban Strategy Economic Development Workshop that I'll pass out right now. So are there other changes to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Move Rhodes, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Law. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we need a motion to excuse the absence of Councilmember Tahar.
So moved. Excuse the absence.
Move Gearba, second Morrow. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a presentation by the Saline Liberty Club. Thanks for coming tonight.
Madam Mayor and Council and Saline residents are very excited to be here tonight. My name is Linda Smith. I'm the Assistant Director at Liberty Club. This is my coworker and the Director of Liberty Club, Jackie Macy. And Ryan Noel is here with us. He is the Program Specialist for Saline Community Education. We'd like to share our new program with you called Liberty Club. It opened its doors on January 3rd of this year, and it's a day program for adults living and serving and working in their community. A little background on how this came about. Jackie and I especially are both parents of adults with special needs, and we got together along with some educators, some other community leaders, and Saline Community Education last year already to begin to formulate a plan to start a program for the adults who exit the Saline Schools Young Adult Program at age 26. There are very limited options for these people. If they are not able to work on their own, you kind of fall off a cliff. And my son graduated from the Saline Young Adult Program last June, and we firsthand found out just how little there was. And so we were fortunate enough to work with Ryan, and Community Education decided to adopt us as a program, and that's how we came about, and that's our relationship with Saline Community Education. We are under the umbrella of that organization. Our mission statement, it's a community-based, center-based program to promote continuous learning and social interaction for adults with disabilities. Liberty Club is designed to continue to develop skills as building blocks for living safely and more independently in our community. This was the first day of Liberty Club, January 3rd of this year. We were all very excited. At that point, we had 8 participants, and we have 2 staff members that work all 4 days, and then 2 part-time staff members as well. You can see the smiles. It was an exciting time. The second day was even more exciting because everybody came back. This is an example of a typical day at Liberty Club, and I'll let Jackie explain a little bit about that. You have a brochure.
Yeah, we have brochures there. I don't know if you need me to use the mic or if I can just talk to everyone. I have a pretty loud voice.
As long as you're standing next to that mic right there.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. We start our day with using the internet to access a news program from news from around the world. And that is really something that I have found to be really exciting because they've taken a real interest in that. And then we connect it to news in our local community. And we also go through a local weather channel. And that is kind of the beginning of the day, which we kind of have a question and answer session following that. And they have opportunities to, throughout the day, to earn what we call kind of Liberty Club fake money, because we use it to work on money skills throughout the day. We then switch to some interesting parts that we have, where we have a word of the week, we have a quote of the week, and we try to connect that word and that quote to everything that goes on in our program during the week and how they can connect it to other people and to the community. And we've been really excited about them coming up with good words to use. So as it started, we started coming up with all the ideas, and now a lot of our participants are coming up with some of the ideas, which I really like to see. We've had a great opportunity to incorporate people in history. Now, when I say people in history, I don't necessarily mean people from the 1800s. It could be, but depending on what's going on in the news, it could be anybody. It could even be our own mayor. Just because of whatever's in the news and whatever we see, we connect that to people that we would be interested in learning about. And so by doing that, I think they're able to connect things historically to things that go on now in our society and compare. The word that came up today actually was a very good one, because they were talking about markup, because this is financial literacy month. And so we got into a lot of different concepts about sales and whether a sale is really a sale depending on markup. So it's amazing how we can find different terms that we can then connect to all the things that we would do in our lives. And it's fun to watch them really get excited and come up with ways that they see these words being used. We've had a really great opportunity to have a time for physical fitness, because Liberty Gym is loaning us the use of the gym every day, so we have an opportunity for that. And what we try to do to give back, because right now we have not had transportation to access our community, and so at this point we're bringing the community to us in any way that we can. We're very fortunate in that hopefully in a week or two we are going to have our own van courtesy of a CARES grant, and then we will be able to get out and do a lot more ourselves with the community. But right now we are giving of our time in the building. We clean the gym for Liberty. We also do things for the preschool that's in the building. We are doing laundry for them, and we send volunteers down every week to read to the students, to read stories to them. So we're doing everything we can to kind of connect. We bring speakers in to connect the community to us by having them come to us. We've had watercolor painters come in. We've had therapeutic drummers. We've had Brian Morrow come in, so that we can find out what's going on in our community and things that we can get involved in outside of that day that they come to us from 8 to 3. There are things that they can then go do on their own afterward, or ways that we can get involved as a club. One of them that we talked, I know, with Brian about was getting involved in the community garden, and I'm really excited about that opportunity. So we've done a lot in that way. We also do pre-vocational skills. And just last week we worked on interviewing skills, how to fill out a resume, what should be in that resume, what does a typical interview look like, what kinds of questions might they ask you. And it was really interesting to see how the light bulb would come on as you started making comments about, well, what do you think you should look like, or how do you think you should act? Because a lot of them really had no idea what they would be doing in an interview. So I think it was a really good experience, and then one of our participants went on a job interview. So we're anxious to see what came of that interview now, but I think that that's a really good start, is to work on all the skills that they need for that. So we've been really excited about all the different activities we've been able to have, and we continue to do more and more every day. We do use a lot of, like I said, a money-based program that I'm excited about, because we now have our own checking account system within Liberty Club, And a lot of what we do may look like just game shows to you because we play Jeopardy, we play What's My Bid, but all of those things connect to what we are learning. So that's just a little bit about what we do in a nutshell with our day. We do, like I said, work in a lot of pre-vocational skills, and my hope is now with transportation we will be able to access the community a lot more to work on a lot more vocational opportunities.
Our future hopes and dreams for Liberty Club include maintaining the van that Jackie mentioned that we hope to get in the next couple of weeks. I think the second bullet point is probably our most important one at this time. We need help. We need everyone's help identifying additional families who would benefit from this program because of all kinds of laws of privacy. Unless we already know of them or they hear about us, it's difficult for us to know where these families are that we could be helpful to. We'd like to secure some job sites for work and volunteering opportunities. We may be doing some work at Brecken in the future. And we may need to expand our space at Liberty School to accommodate growth in the future. Many people ask about our wish list. We always have one, of course. And it includes the things that you see there, crafts, prizes, another laptop, small refrigerator, and so on. And we've been very fortunate that many things, in fact, about 95% of what we have in our room has been donated by many supporters. So now I would like to give you just a little view of some other activities at Liberty Club. I would also like to just briefly mention that even though we are part of community education, what we get from community education is a room at Liberty School and use of the facilities. We don't get any financial help from them. We are self-funded by our participants and any donations and grants that we can get. So I wanted to make that clear, so there's no misunderstanding. Here are some of our participants, a little dark. Opening day of baseball. Mardi Gras.
Okay, so this is running. We do, some of the success stories on some of these individuals. They're anywhere from, they've been by themselves a lot. Like Linda said, they go after the young adult program. They go on and then they're kind of by themselves and don't have a lot of outlets. So one of the big ones is one of our individuals enjoys movies, enjoys watching them. And that this person kind of hooked up with another individual there who was kind of just stuck at home, didn't really get out a whole lot. So they got together and had a movie night and and were able to have some fun, and they're all excited about it all week, just talking about it all week on how they wanted to, can't wait till we get to go to your house Friday and watch this movie. And so it's just pretty neat to see those kind of things, them grow, them connect more with other individuals in the community to have those opportunities to play with or to enjoy and interact with others. So there's a lot of good success stories we could go on and on about, but you've really seen the building of their them personally. So
It's great.
So thank you for this opportunity.
Sure.
To inform you about this, and we have our phone numbers, it's on the brochure.
Is there a way to reach out to you? Like, do you have a link through the community ed, or is there another way?
Currently, there is on the Saline Community website.
Okay.
There is a Liberty Club link on the left-hand side there.
Great.
But we're working on it.
It's a great program, so thanks for putting it together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to, yeah, thank you for doing that. And next on the agenda, we have a presentation of the 212 Arts Center. You guys want to come up here? Or? Hello. Okay, this is working. So you guys need to face, I think, this way so everybody can see. These are, I guess, the best way founding members of the 212 Arts Center, which is on, not 212, 216 now, Michigan Avenue, on West Michigan Avenue. And on Friday night, 212 has celebrated their 5-year anniversary of opening in April of 2006, that would be. So I know that some of the council members were at the Saline Salutes, which was recognizing our Citizen of the Year and Lifetime Achievement, and we wanted to have an opportunity to recognize you on behalf of the Saline community, all the work that you've done to bring culture and the arts and visual arts, and just a great place for artists to gather together, and they've done a lot of really wonderful things in the community on behalf of the community by a lot of great learning and sharing the love of art and expanding all our horizons. And really important part of our community, and I know you've been really involved with the Culture and Arts Committee and just done a lot of different things. We have the art on Van Gogh, and I know you were talking about some of the kites. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about some of your programs, but we have you do? Good. So we have because we were there Friday night. I said, can you guys come Monday night? Because it's much better being televised and really then a lot more people in the community that may not be aware of you yet, but I know that is of great interest for everybody in the community to access your programs as much as possible. So I'm going to read this proclamation, and then if you have some specific programs that you wanted to talk about this summer, that would be great. Whereas 212 Arts Center opened their doors in Saline in April 2006, bringing a new awareness of arts and culture to the Saline community, and whereas Marjorie Bovey, right there in the pink scarf, began the 212 Arts Center by offering 21 classes in their premier season, and today boasts more than 60 class offerings. And whereas 212 Arts Center has continued to grow and prosper in our community, providing classes in painting, drawing, ceramics, fiber art, children's classes, jewelry, pastel, as well as providing a pottery studio with classes in wheel throwing and hand building. And whereas 212 Arts Center has initiated many programs and groups such as 212 On the Go, 212's Artists of the Month, and the Cake Eaters, and has partnered with other Saline organizations, stores, and companies working together at various community events and festivals, teaching students a variety of art classes, bringing local art to downtown Saline, and also working together to create a community-wide art installation. And whereas 212 Arts Center is celebrating their 5th anniversary in Saline and will host an artist reception featuring the artwork of instructors who have helped influence their steady growth in the Saline community. Now, therefore, I, Gretchen Driscoll, Mayor of the City of Saline, and on behalf of the Saline City Council and citizens of Saline, do hereby congratulate 212 Arts Center on this occasion of their 5th anniversary and thank them for their vision, dedication to the arts, and for bringing an awareness to the Saline community of the arts and culture world, and for the many offerings and opportunities afforded our residents to enrich their lives. And I just want to introduce Cindy Barnett and also Jean Gaines, I'm sorry. That's like totally embarrassing because she's my neighbor. But Gaines Collins, they've been really active, and the reason the address is different is because they were originally located at 212 West Michigan, and now they moved next door. So that just is an example of the great growth and the programs that have really been expanding. So if we could give them a round of applause for all their hard work. I know that Cindy, I was hoping that we're going to talk
I
about
did,
some
I
of the
wanted-
programs.
yeah, I did.
Okay, great.
I wanted to say thank you to the mayor and the city council for your support and for acknowledging our 5th year anniversary through this proclamation. And thank you to the Cowan Slavin Foundation and its board members for believing in and supporting Margie's vision for the 212 Arts Center. We're currently getting ready for our summer camps and classes, even though it doesn't feel like it. Soon we'll be here. We offer classes for the budding artists of 4 to 7-year-olds with our little artist camps to be offered this August. And we also offer watercolors and colored pencils for the budding artists of 65. So we have many classes from all age ranges. We will offer the Art Confetti Camp Series 1 week each month, which will introduce young artists to various art mediums such as drawing, watercolors, and pottery. Our pottery studio manager, Sharon Graff Horning, has worked diligently to make our pottery studio a very nice facility, and it's up and running quickly soon after we opened, after our move to 216, which it was a huge feat. It's a basement, now it's an operating and functional pottery studio. And through her hard work, we'll be able to offer 6 pottery camps throughout the summer and adult pottery classes as well. Throughout the summer, our 212 on the Go program, which brings art into the community for free, will work with the Saline District Library, the Saline Community Ed Summer Camps, the Fifth Corner Teen Center, and will be at the Thursday Night Downtown Music Series. On Saturday, June 11th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., the community is invited to the 212 Arts Center for Family Fun Day, which gives the community an opportunity to meet our instructors, tour our new facility, hear the band, the Maracas of Invincibility, which is a high school band, and it's nice to have the youth involved. And we will have make and take art projects, and we'll have free popcorn, snow cones, and cotton candy. It's usually a fun event, and everybody enjoys the bubble making. And what else do we do? It's just a lot of fun. A lot of people come and have
June
fun.
11th.
June 11th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. right at 216. And then you can go to our website, 212arts.org, for information about our current programs and our featured artists of the month. And many times we have other special events going on. So we thank you all for your support throughout the 5 years, and we encourage you to stop by and visit us because we love visitors. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda, we have citizen comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question on items that appear on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Is there anyone that would like to speak to anything on the agenda?
Pam Grosshans, I am the Saline Celtic Festival treasurer. When we were here about a month ago and we discussed the Saline Celtic Festival, one of the things that was clear was that the council had a concern that we did not communicate our end-of-year report until the March meeting. I've been on the executive council for the festival for the last 4 years, and we have traditionally given that report in the February-March timeframe. So I'm afraid there was a miscommunication or misunderstanding if the council wanted that report prior to that. But in the interest of acknowledging that you want information, I have included in your packet today, and I see you have it under your discussion items, the minutes from our last executive council meeting, our latest treasurer's report, and we'll be including these documents in your packet periodically so that we don't wait until the September-October timeframe for you to understand what is happening with the Celtic Festival in 2011, that you'll have up-to-date information on a bi-monthly basis to look at, because we definitely want you to understand what we're doing. The other thing that I've included in your packet is 2 memos from the Arts Alliance. And Mr. Ivy, you had brought up at the last council meeting that we had a grant that was turned down. I really don't have information on that grant, but I included 2 memos on grants that we were awarded. In 2008 and 2010, we were given $4,000 and $1,500. And if you read those write-ups, the Arts Alliance gave us very positive feedback on our grant and on our festival.
Ms. Crows-Hands, if I might interject, my understanding is that your comments should be germane to the agenda item. I haven't heard anything
We have it
yet
under
about
discussion.
the 5K run.
Oh, I
At
thought I
any
could
rate,
discuss
there-
anything.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to encourage you all that if you have questions or concerns or suggestions, that you communicate to us. You can do it through Glenn Law, who's our council rep, or Gretchen Driscoll, who comes to our meetings, or communicate with any of us. We would be glad to sit down and discuss anything about the festival with you if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a little bit in addition to what Pam was saying. I apologize for not getting this in time to be included in the packet. But we did want to follow up a little bit, and a couple of clarifications on tonight as well, or the agenda item. But again, going back to about a month ago when we did have the approval of this year's Celtic Festival, following that particular meeting, there were several articles in the newspapers, and very, very much so I want to make sure that the message that was sent that night was heard loud and clear. We've heard many things from the volunteers that help with the festival. We've heard many things from the citizens of Saline, and we've heard many things from the businesses of Saline, all of which have been very positive in that regard. We did receive last week the approval for the sponsorship signs on the east side and west side of the town, and I'm pleased to say that within 24 hours we received support from 2 local businesses to offset the cost of the materials for building those signs, so they will be put up at no expense whatsoever to the festival or to the city of Saline. The target budget for this year for fundraising is $9,000. I now have commitments for over $15,000 already 3 months before the start of the festival. We've recently received approval for a sidebar article in this year's Michigan Festivals and Fairs, which is the largest publication in the state of Michigan directed to this area, and they have given me a verbal commitment that the Saline Celtic Festival will be the cover story in 2012. We do have the 5K race, which we're up for approval for tonight. We have 3 corporate sponsorships for that, MFIT, Running Fit, and the American Heart Association. And we have now established a 501c3 nonprofit organization to help with the fundraising needs entitled the Friends of the Celtic Festival. And I have a couple of little comments about that as it relates somewhat to the festival. The 501c3 is, first of all, mandatory for us to get some of the type of funding that we're going after for the type of financial security that we want within the future. We want to position the festival for the future, but certainly not forget about the past. We want to develop reserve funds so that if we do have an off year, we can survive those off years when Mother Nature doesn't see fit, like snow on April 18th. We do need to carry our own weight against the city expenses. We heard that message loud and clear, and the first step toward that starts tonight. And lastly, I think the festival, and we've discussed this thoroughly within our meetings, the festival needs to adapt or die, very simply. We need to make some adjustments. There are a lot of new things that need to be included, some old things that need to be included, and we intend to move forward with that. The 501c3 is a foundation that what it is a foundation that's focused primarily on raising funds to help support in the enjoyment of the Saline Celtic Festival. What it's not is meant to replace the working relationship or the committee structure of the operations. We do need to have this for mandatory requirements for certain fundraisings. We think it's necessary for other people who would rather commit their funds directly to a more formal 501c3. and it does allow us for more profitable operations, because with that, we can go and get our own liquor licensing from the Michigan Liquor Commission, rather than having to purchase that through other organizations and tap into our expenses. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
James Peters, 509 Springbrook. Just one more detail about the 5K race. It will be managed by the University of Michigan, and proceeds will go to Moss Children's Hospital. So we have now added a charity layer to the Celtic Festival, and I'm proud of that fact. Thank you.
Is there further citizen comment? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion.
Move to approve.
Mr. Gearbaugh, Councilmember Gearbaugh,
Yes.
do we have a second?
Support.
This is as submitted, supported
Yes.
by Mr. Rhodes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under unfinished business, item 1042, the purchase of Karpinski property at 207 Monroe Street. This will be a motion to authorize or reject the purchase of the Karpinski property at 207 Monroe Street pursuant to the provisions of the sales contract executed by both parties, and to authorize or not authorize the city attorney to complete the closing on this property on or before April 30th, 2011. Do we have a
Move to
motion?
authorize and authorize.
Move Ivy, do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Morrow?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As I previously stated, at a prior council meeting, although I appreciate the efforts made by Attorney Grossman and City Manager Campbell to negotiate this deal, I do think it's bad public policy, an inappropriate allocation of $100,000, and I'll be voting against this motion and subsequent motions relating to the purchase and maintenance of the former Karpinski property at 207, Monroe Street. Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Rhodes?
When I initially supported this potential acquisition, one of the reasons that I did was to preserve the possibility of cemetery expansion onto this site. And since then, the Cemetery Expansion Task Force has decided with council, and council approved the expansion of capacity on the existing Oakwood Cemetery location. So I am not in favor of going ahead with this purchase at this point in time. And I think the constraints, the financial constraints that we're operating under, and what we're asking our staff and other folks to give back, it's very difficult for me to justify moving forward at this point, even though I was initially in favor of it.
Further discussion on this motion? Mr. Gearbaugh?
I was on council, back in late 1997 and on through 2003, and we discussed this property. And at that time, the price was extremely expensive, and we turned it down. I do have concerns with the park down there, that we don't have parking for it. This will help alleviate that. We do have potential that it could possibly be used for any kind of expansion related to the sewer treatment plant. Besides the other addition, that this property would help expand and maintain that park that's down there, because it is kind of limited and its configuration is kind of odd. I do know that we do have cuts and things that come, but we also have to balance out what we do for the city, and I believe this is an accurate and good price for us to purchase this land at this time, and hopefully will be beneficial in the future, which is what we really are buying this for. So that's the reason why I'm supporting it.
And just wanted, maybe Mr. Burgoyne, since this has been out there for a long time, just want to make sure that the people in the audience and that are watching this understand that this is a property that's on Monroe Street, opposite from our cemetery, abutting nearby our wastewater treatment plant, and directly abutting our People's Park, which is what Mr. Councilmember Gearbaugh alluded to. And also as part, we have a linear trail master plan that we've had for probably 10 to 15 years that this is part of. It's $100,000 for 3.5 acres, and if we choose in the future to dispose of this property by putting it back on the market for high-density residential or some other kind of resale value, I do believe in a better economy, we would for sure return dollar for dollar, if not more. And I would also like to point out for some of us that I know are concerned about our budget, we have currently within our budget $2 million $2 million undesignated fund balance at the end of this year, which does include this purchase in the budget. Is that correct, Mr. Burgoyne? So, which is about a 20% fund balance this year. And while we are working on the budget for next year, and it is being shown to decrease, I think I would agree with Mr. Gearbaugh. I think there's room for this as a long-range plan decision. So that's my perspective on it. So, Mr. Ivey, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I completely agree with your assessment, and I feel the same, that there are some very important potential projects that could occur, and this property is kind of a keystone to those projects. A linear trail master plan, we can benefit by having that property. Yes, as Councilmember Rhodes stated, we may be moving in a different direction as far as the cemetery goes. But the cemetery notwithstanding, we've got People's Park, we've got the sewer treatment plant, and I can see where there are going to be some potential uses for this property. And I think if we look back 10 years from now, we will say that this was a prudent use of the city's money to purchase it, and the price is certainly reasonable. So I'm in full support. We've deliberated this council for over 2 years, and I believe that that it's the kind of thing that you support because you feel not necessarily that you have a good reason or a good use for the property at the moment, but it's certainly down the road a good investment.
Mr. Law.
Well, I will support this motion with some reservations, and given the fact of course, the economic situation that the state is in and what we're in, although we're better off, as I keep saying, as other municipalities than most other municipalities. However, I don't want this, at least for what I'm saying, and I hope council will agree, that I don't want this to become more of a consistent thing. Not that I don't think it will, that there's a whole bunch of property out there waiting for us to purchase, because as Councilmember Gearbaugh and others have alluded to, there is the potential for us to use this for what would be the betterment of the city as a whole. I strongly feel that we should not get into the practice of doing this on a regular basis or annual basis or whatever. In this situation, however, I think it is worthwhile, although I would have preferred to see a straight, narrow goal to what this property was going to be used for, but given where it is and the possibilities involved, I will support it.
Is there further discussion on this motion? All in favor of the motion to authorize and authorize, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries. 1151 Saline Celtic Festival 5K run. This is a motion to acknowledge receive the application for use of public ways for the 5K run to be held on Saturday, July 9, 2011, in conjunction with the 2011 Celtic Festival. To acknowledge receipt of the April 6, 2011 memo from Police Chief Bunton, and the April 12, 2011 memo from Public Works Director Fordyce. To approve or not approve the Saline Celtic Festival 5K run to be held on Saturday, July 9, 2011, utilizing city streets as outlined, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the traffic engineer issue the necessary traffic control orders. 2, the volunteers be responsible for placing the barricades and cones in the street for the closures and then removing them after the race. 3, that the city expenses related to this event over and above the normal business hours, estimated at $1,000, be paid by the Friends of the Celtic Festival.
Move to approve.
Move law. Do we have a second?
Support.
Discussion? Mr. Law?
This certainly is a benefit for the Celtic Festival, and I think a benefit for, obviously, the community and those who will be benefiting from it, as we've just heard from Mr. Peters concerning the Mott's Children's Hospital. I can't think of a better beneficiary than that, given that I work with kids and how important that is. Also, that it is the direction, I think, that we as a council have sent basically to the committee, that coming up with innovative ways and different ways of attracting people and bringing people into the community and knowing about the festival and hopefully attending the festival. Thereby, of course, economics comes into play, then their revenues go up, and hopefully we're all happy about that. What else was I going to say? I think, and just the given fact that 5K runs and running seems to be a big thing these days. I don't do it personally, and not that I will this time, but I'm glad to see that it's part of the Celtic Festival. So, and also the fact that the funding, at least for the costs involved for setting this up, is being funded by the festival, which I think shows their commitment to following through, and as council has voiced, that they're taking the responsibility and responsible approach to this. Thank you.
Further discussion? I was at the meeting when we talked about this last week, and it's going to be paid by the Friends of the Celtic Festival, which is the 501c3, and it sounds like it's going to be a good fundraiser. It's going to be split, though, right? It's not all the proceeds are going to mods. So I just wanted to clarify that. The other thing we talked about, having people running their kilts and having some pipers along the route. So I think it's going to be a really unique and innovative 5K run for the region, and I think that'll be a little added draw. And also, at the end of the race, the idea is that the racers will be part of the opening ceremonies, which will be starting at 11 in the morning on that date. So if everybody on council could make sure you get that on your calendar, because that is a big event to be attending with the opening ceremonies. So I also would like to express my appreciation. I know that the committee's working very hard on trying to find as many opportunities as possible to address the revenue side of actually both sides of the equation, so we have a nice fund balance at the end of the year. If there's no further discussion on this motion, I'm sorry, Mr. Rhodes.
Just one question. Is the 501c3 Friends of the Celtic Festival in existence, or is that to be applied for?
Yes, it has been filed, yes.
Has been filed, but not yet approved, so it's, okay.
Federal ID number has been assigned, has been filed with the state.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 1119, award a mausoleum niche proposal. This is Eichhoff Columbaria Incorporated. This would be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 7, 2011 memo from City Superintendent Engineer Rubel, City Clerk Hill, and Public Works Director Fordyce to award or not award the mausoleum niche proposal to Eichhoff Columbaria Incorporated in the amount of $47,976. Option A cost plus $780 for extra marble fronts as outlined in their proposal dated March 21st, 2011, for the furnishing, delivery, and installation of 139 companion niches in the mausoleum at Oakwood Cemetery, to authorize or not authorize the mayor clerk to execute a contract with Eichhoff Columbaria Incorporated for this project after review and approval of the city attorney.
Move to award and authorize.
Second.
Move by Ivy to award and authorize, and seconded by Morrow. Discussion? Mr. Gearbox.
Just curious how this is going to be coordinated with any other work that's going to be done on the mausoleum and such,
Maybe.
since this is occurring inside it.
I do have a sample of what the niche faces will look like. If you like, I could pass it around. It's a little heavy, but...
Please.
And part of the RFP was to coordinate work so as not to interfere with any activities at the cemetery, and work around, it'll be done after Memorial Day, because the construction work is in basically next year's budget, FY12. And basically the restoration of the mausoleum took place over the last, I'd say, 8 or 9 years, and so it was completed. And then we waited an additional year just to see how it weathered, especially on the interior restoration, and it held up throughout sort of a nasty winter and fall last year. So The restoration of the interior turned out well, and now we're ready to do the installation of the niches per the work that the council did and the task force committee did in the past year. And so we're at the point now where we actually can implement the project. Mr. Larry Oakes is here. He's a representative of ICOF. He could also answer any questions that you have about the specific details and any technical aspects of the niches.
No, I was more curious as to some of the other work that was going to be done on it. I didn't know if it was bidded as part of this, if it's all going to happen at the same time, or this will occur, and then there'll be some other work done on the mausoleum, and what it cost me coming out. And I think there was a concern, this is all coming out of the perpetuary fund too, right?
Correct, right. All the restoration of the mausoleum was completed in the last 8 years, and this is the last piece going in now, besides doing some repairs to the door.
Yeah, I noticed the doors just recently, and some of the windows had started to rot out on the bottom again, so I didn't know when that was going to be done, so. All right. I just wanted to raise that concern, so,
Yes.
thanks.
Mr. Ivy?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to commend Mr. Rubel and also thank, I'm sorry, you gave his name, but I didn't catch it, the representative from ICOF.
Larry Oakes.
Oakes, Mr. Oakes.
Oakes.
Thank Mr. Oakes for coming to council this evening to be here to field any questions that we might have. I think we've made an excellent choice in awarding this bid. I think, Mr. Oakes, your company certainly is an innovator and has been at the forefront of developing columbaria. And as I read on your material on your website, your products are time-tested. You've been doing this for 25 years.
Yes.
And you've made all the mistakes, and you've made the tweaks and the corrections so that the end result 25 years later is a quality product. And I think that's very important as we make this decision to know that we're going to get the best possible product for our investment. So again, I commend you, Mr. Oakes, and you, Mr. Rubel, for making this choice.
Thank you very much for those comments. I'll certainly pass them along to Mr. Icon.
Mr. Morrow?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo some of the comments made by Mr. Ivy, and of course to commend him for his work, because he was sort of the de facto chair of the cemetery task force, which this whole notion and idea came out of. But I enthusiastically second this motion and advocate for its approval. There's nothing like an idea whose time has come, and I know that this issue of installing niches in the Oakwood Cemetery Mausoleum has been talked about and deliberated about for some time. I'm thinking 10, 15 years plus. So this is where the future is taking us, my friends. There are more cremations and obviously a greater demand for storage facilities for cremains. So I'm excited by this. I appreciate, again, Mr. Rubel, your efforts on this issue, as well as Mr. Fordyce and Clerk Hill. And again, urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Further discussion on this motion? Well, Mr. Oakes, since you came here, would you like to speak, or in particular, since...
I just really appreciate...
Could you come near the microphone? Because
I really appreciate all the very positive comments that have been made, and I do want to say, in reference to the future in the funeral business, I have a background in pre-planning funerals that goes back a ways. And I've met with over 1,000 families in the last 4 years to pre-plan funerals. The cremation rate has gone from 10% to almost 60%. It's 75% in Canada. So I think this decision really bodes well for the city of Saline, because the trends are there. It's just accommodating your population, and I certainly thank you for choosing ICOF.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 08189, this is an amendment to engineering services agreement for Midwestern Consulting. This would be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the March 29, 2011 memo from City Superintendent Engineer Rubel and Director of Public Works Fordyce, to authorize or not authorize an amendment to the engineering services agreement for 2009 North Ann Arbor, 2010 Willis Road. and 2010 Woodland Walk, that would be the budget years, in the total amount of $21,403.68 for additional engineering costs as outlined in the 2 letters dated March 23, 2011, and 1 letter dated March 25, 2011 from Jim Valenta, Midwestern Consulting. Do we have a motion?
Move to authorize.
Move Rhodes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second Gearba. Discussion. Mr. Rubo, would you like to explain this?
Yes, thank you. As you can gather from the memo, this is sort of a balancing order and adjustment to the engineering for design and administration of several projects over the last 2 years. In fact, if you look at it, there was 4 parts to the 2009 contract, and then we had the Willis Road, which was federal aid, and also the Ann Arbor, which was the stimulus money project that was handled in quick fashion by Midwestern Consulting. So we, one of the first communities actually to use it in this part of Michigan, and use it successfully. Mr. Jim Valenta is here tonight from MCI. He's lead engineer on nearly all the projects that MCI has done in the last 10 years, all of which have turned out in our favor as far as the benefit of the project, the good design of the project, coming up with value engineering, ways that we could save money. One of the ways we save money, of course, is by city staff using cost avoidance. In that we, myself, Jeff Fordyce, we actually perform a lot of the preliminary work, do an accurate scope of work, and we actually do the construction inspection, in some cases the administration, based on the consultant's ability to create the package that way, the bid package, to enable us to actually save more money. So we end up saving, just on a couple of these projects, we saved maybe $100,000 to $150,000 just by not contracting that out and using common sense and making things simple, that we could do it with part-time and staff help. So, we have a lot of built-in savings here. The fact that there were some adjustments needed are explained in Mr. Valenta's letter. Basically, things changed at the state level on the 2 grant projects, especially the ARRA and the Federal Aid Urban. MDOT went to consultant review at the preliminary plan stage, whereas the consultant applied a stricter letter of the rules and demanded more revisions and more design backup and so forth, extra efforts that we didn't do on prior federal aid urban projects. And then with the ARRA project, despite the fact that we had an engineering estimate, we were asked to program it and actually bid it out before the federal government released all their administrative rules and requirements. So that came later, and that also required more engineering effort to catch up to the rules that came after the fact. And then another problem we had was one of the subcontractors put a lien on the North Ann Arbor Street project that created some additional reporting to MDOT. So if you look at the overall item here, what it amounts to is the increase part, I think I've reported in the memo. If you look at the overall increase, percentage-wise, I know I have it in here somewhere. I think it's only a couple percent increase. And actually a large portion of that is on the Woodland Safety Walk, because we did not contract for all of the engineering work that was needed, but it was performed to come back later to do as an amendment to the contract. So this covers at least 7 different projects, and so if you spread out the 21,000 extra, it's only like 3,000 per project.
Just a quick point. Our city clerk just saved us 5 cents. It should be 21,403.63, not .68. So for Mr. Rhodes and Mr. Gearbout, would you be okay with changing that?
I would agree to the 5-cent reduction.
Okay.
Fine with me.
So is there any questions for Mr. Rubel? Mr. Law?
Just to clarify, Mr. Rubel, you're saying that the ARRA project, we are, because of the, as if I'm reading the letter right, the incurred charges from the reporting requirements from that is almost $10,000, so we're having to pay $10,000 more because of that?
As best as we could decipher, because all these projects were combined under one agreement, so in some cases, we may not have made an accurate split between the three. That's why I showed it as an overall increase.
The city didn't pay that. That was a grant, wasn't it?
Right.
For North Ann Arbor
Oh,
Street?
you're not referring to the engineering fee?
You're talking about North Ann Arbor Street?
Right.
Yeah, the engineering.
That's
Right.
a 100% grant, my understanding.
Due to the charges in ARRA reporting requirements,
Right.
this request, we are asking for reimbursement of $9,488.22 for additional services, unless I'm reading this wrong, which is
Right.
very possible.
Right. And some of that is one of the reasons is the extra work required from ARRA that came out after
Right.
we had an engineering agreement. And some of the work is due to the lien that was put on the contract by the subcontractor and following up and more paperwork with MDOT.
Okay. So, I guess the lesson learned here is don't work with federal government, because you end up paying more.
Told you so.
Well, we got most of the project for a grant, though, right? Wasn't it?
Correct. And the guideline was that we would get 200 and we could apply. We could come up with a project worth $210,000. We were only eligible for $210,000. So we chose North Ann Arbor Street. We did a rough estimate, programmed it. We hired MCI to do the design work in quick fashion. We actually turned the whole thing around in less than 3 months and started construction. What happened then is when the bids came in, they were $226,000. Well, that put us into a $16,000 participation fee. But as it ended up, through administering the contract and saving some money here and there on it, the actual construction cost came in under the $210,000. So we did not have to pay anything out of pocket for the construction. We only paid for engineering services, which we had to pay for anyway. So we did not have to spend participation in the construction.
Is there further discussion on this? Mr. Ivey?
Thank you, Mayor. To some extent, I would agree with my colleague, Mr. Law, that yes, sometimes when the federal government gets involved, the water gets muddy, but I think the real villain in this episode is MDOT. I mean, time and time again, and I think Mr. Valenta has made it quite clear that MDOT has changed their minds or changed the rules, and we're at their mercy, are we not? I mean, there's really nothing we can do about it except now pay the extra money. Yeah, that's not right, but I don't know how we can change that.
We had some things work in our favor. I have good relationship with the local agency engineers and the people at the Brighton TSC, so we are able to get, we were able to actually move things faster because of, we have good communications with them and we work well together. The problem is that all the money comes with some strings, and some of the rules filter down after you have to commit.
Okay, further discussion on this motion? All in favor to authorize, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under new business, item 1164, thank you, Mr. Ruel. 2011 Saline Community Fair Parade, this is a motion to acknowledge receive the application for community event use of public ways from Roger Phelps on behalf of the Saline Community Fair for the annual parade. To acknowledge receive the April 1st, 2011 memo from Police Chief Bunton and the March 31st, 2011 memo from Public Works Director Fordyce and the March 31st, 2011 memo from Fire Chief Heff to approve or not approve the annual fair parade to be held on Saturday, September 3rd, 2011 on Michigan Avenue beginning at 12 noon, subject to the following conditions. 1, approval of the required parade permit from MDOT for the closing of Michigan Avenue. 2, that the traffic engineer issue the appropriate temporary traffic controllers for the use of Michigan Avenue and local streets as required for this event. 3, that all animal waste and bedding be cleaned up and disposed of by the Saline Community Fair, with the parade route being cleaned prior to the reopening of Michigan Avenue to traffic. 4, that the applicant provide a certificate of insurance with the City of Saline as an endorsed additional insured party for this event, subject to the approval by the city attorney. 5, that the cost for city services for this event, estimated at this time to be $2,325, be waived or paid for by the applicant, which would be the actual cost after the event. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve and waive.
Second.
Moved Law, second Ivy. Discussion. Mr. Gearba.
This has been traditional to support this and everything, but again, I think we need to look at this with all our other events that we're providing, and again, addressing the cost that we're providing for each one of these events, just to see what we can do as a fairness to every event that we do have occurring in the city. So again, I'll support this, but I see this as being more of a reasonable approach, although it is only a few hours uptown. So.
Further discussion on this motion? Mr. Law? Did you?
Yeah, I know what Mr. Gerbaugh is saying. We've had the possibility of discussing fees and waiving them, and where do you start, and what event do you start at, and then start the ball rolling from there. And I go back to the argument that was made before, that these events enhance the quality of life in Saline. They bring out people in Saline. If there was a parade for the Celtic Festival, as there was last year and the year before that, I would hope that we would have been same entertaining the same motion about waiving fees for that as they did before, and as we did before for the Celtic Festival and its parade. But since that parade is now in the grounds, that's a moot point. If that was what's being alluded to, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that overall, whether it's the Memorial Day parade, the Fair parade, the Christmas parade, I think it's well worth having the money to waive if it means that it's going to bring people out and help downtown and just the overall life of the city.
Well, I'll just put my 2 cents in. I also would agree with Mr. Law that one of the things that is really important to the Saline community is community activities, and this is a way of us to assist volunteers in the community that are committed to preserving and maintaining and improving our quality of life, and that's what makes Saline a special place to live. So I will probably be interested in continuing to waive these. Over the years that I've been on council, which is a long time, I think Diane can attest to this, we've had, the parade, or the waiving of fees comes up probably every 3 years, and I appreciate Mr. Gearby. I know you've been on council before, and we've had this discussion, and I think it's probably a philosophical, it's really a philosophical issue how you feel about it, and I think that our budget's really important. I just think that there are certain things that I personally would prioritize as a budget item, and that would continue to be, because I know there will be other applications in the future from other nonprofits that are looking to see city support, and my opinion about this. And if the majority of council wants to have a study on this again, like we did a couple years ago, we could do that. But really, the Fair Parade does a lot for the community. They have a lot of, we studied this 15 years ago, and what we identified was the Rotary. There's a bunch of nonprofits that work at the parade, whether it's the Boy Scouts in the parking lot or the Girl Scouts selling, whatever they're selling, and then there's Boy Scouts selling soda, and then there's Kiwanis, and there's Rotary, and so all these items that come through the parade, actually the money that is made there actually gets funneled back into the community in really positive ways. So my take on actually most of these events, unless it's for a private corporation, would be that it continues to support a strong community, and I will continue to support that.
Mayor, just one thing.
Sure.
I want to clarify, I still want to support these items, but I'm looking at trying to balance out, because we do have more requests coming up. We have Tour of Washington, all of these events are occurring. But I'm not saying wiping them out, but I'm saying we're going to have to look at how we're going to handle this in the event that we do get hit significantly by any reductions.
Well, this sort of reminds me of the conversation that the governor had around brownfield credits and how we should get rid of brownfield credits. So, which is one of the most important economic development tools that urban areas use. And we have 2 brownfields that one is almost done and the other has issues not related to the actual completion, but some parties that have still outstanding issues resolving. At any rate, we have brownfields that are really important, and what they're talking about doing now is capping the credit. And what happens when you cap is then you set up a tone on an unsure, unstable ground, and then developers will be questioning whether or not it's even worth developing that project or spending the amount of time and dollars, because it does take a lot of time for events to come together. It takes a lot of time for development projects to come together. So while they're totally different, one's nonprofit, one's investment in the community, they're both very important to, I think, our communities. And I think when you start talking about maybe capping it or identifying like a limit, then that starts putting people questioning how much they want to do in the community. So my personal opinion would be it would be on a case-by-case basis involving merit. But at any rate, if we want to have further discussion, if any council members have anything they'd like to contribute to this conversation, no? Then we have a motion to approve and waive. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 1162, Brecken Grill Outdoor Cafe Table, South Ann Arbor Street and West Michigan Avenue. This is a motion to acknowledge receipt of the applications from Brecken Grill for use of public right-of-way for cafe tables, to acknowledge receipt of the April 13, 2011 memo from City Clerk Hill, and the March 17, 2011 memo from Building Inspector Taylor, which is amended April 7, 2011 by City Superintendent Rubel, to approve or not approve the sidewalk used by Brecken Grill for the cafe tables on South Ann Arbor Street and West Michigan Avenue, as shown on diagram 1.2 revised, subject to final on-site approval by the building inspector, and to authorize or not authorize the city clerk to execute the temporary license agreements as submitted. And further, to notify MDOT that the city of Saline is in support of these sidewalk cafes, and that the city of Saline accepts responsibility of enforcement. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve and authorize.
We have a second?
Second.
Move road, second law, to approve and authorize. Discussion. Mr. Rhodes.
I would just say that I'm pleased to see this revision to the arrangement of the tables to ensure that there's adequate, safe passageway past this outside seating area, recognizing that outside seating also brings a lot more activity and energy level to our downtown, and it's important that we're able to do that, so I'm pleased to see this compromise between those two positions. Thank you.
Further discussion on this motion? Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Mayor. I would echo the comments made by Mr. Rhodes, and I have no problem with this motion. I do have a question, however, for the city clerk, and I apologize because had I thought of this earlier, I would have checked my files. But in the previous years, and since I've been on council, so in 2010 and 2009, I recall that we approved all of the cafe seating for our downtown businesses at once. Can you give me an update on that? Are we assuming that other businesses aren't applying, or will they be coming in the future?
My Favorite Cafe and the Drowsy Parent, those have already been approved.
Okay.
Last year, we changed the agreements that gave me the authority to approve
Gotcha.
those agreements if there were no substantial changes or
Okay.
no additional requests or no complaints, and neither one of those had either. So
Okay.
I've gone ahead and they've been reviewed by staff.
Okay.
No problems, and those have been approved.
Okay.
Dan's is on private property, and he
Right.
does not need approval because that went through site plan.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Ivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Last year, we revised the duration of time that the tables would remain outdoors, I believe from November 1st to December 1st. And thinking back to last November, I think most of the other establishments that have outdoor cafes had taken their tables and chairs inside or secured them, with the exception of Brecken Grill. And I don't know if there was a whole lot of use of those tables after November 1st. I kind of remember that whenever I passed by there was nobody outside, so I just wonder if council made a mistake by extending that to December 1st, and if anything, if we're going to look at these on an individual basis when they are referred by the city clerk, that we might want to move that ending period date back to November 1st instead of December. I'm just throwing this out here if anyone else feels that that's significant. I don't know.
My take is the longer people want to sit outside, the better it is for downtown Saline. We want loitering. That's my motto. The more you loiter in the downtown area, the more we like it. So, because that means you're enjoying our beautiful downtown and hopefully our shops. Drinking coffee if it's a cold day, and I know some places actually have those little heater things, things that go over. I know Mr. Garagosian's here. Do you have something you wanted to say regarding the time? But I love to see people hanging out downtown outside, because then you can really see the energy.
Given the opportunity, I think it would make great use of that right away, even if it were to be extended 12 months of the year. If people want to sit outside during a holiday parade or any of these parades that are happening after November 1st, if the tables are out there and you have hot chocolate, or you're able to serve hot chocolate and chili or soup or whatever, that should be up to the guests or the citizens, of Saline, or the people who are attending these events, to say, hey, we want to sit outside. Or if we're going to have the snowman building competition again, and there's more events that happen downtown, given the opportunity, I would love to put tables out on the sidewalk. But having to go through a whole approval process in such a short notice for an event like that just didn't seem like it was really conducive to the event for last year. But being able to have it extended even to a longer period of time is something that, for future years, not for this year, say, for example, but for future years, would allow people to come out. If they want to sit in front of My Favorite Cafe for a hot chocolate or a coffee on December 10th, that should be really up to their discretion. But as far as the approval of the new site plan and so forth, I mean, the actual measurements are what was in question. I don't think the whole actual layout of the tables where they were on the sidewalk, once I had Mr. Rubel and Tillman Taylor come out to look at it, I think the actual layout of the tables and so forth will be similar to what you see. I don't think it's going to be a whole new layout of design because of the limited space on that sidewalk, but just giving it to 36 inches that's required. Thanks.
Thanks. Any further discussion on this motion? If not, we have a motion to approve and authorize. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 1163, the Boley Bridge replacement at Mill Pond Park. It's a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 12, 2011 memo from Public Works Director Fordyce to authorize or not authorize purchase of a 25-foot by 6-foot steel truss bridge from Art Teresen Incorporated in the amount of $12,900 to replace the existing Boley Bridge in Mill Pond Park.
Move to authorize.
Move Ivy. Do we have a second?
Support.
Mr. Rhodes. Mr. Fordyce, would you like to make a report on this, please?
Thank you. During some of the investigations required for the design of our CMI grant project, a structural engineer reviewed the Boley Bridge, which originally was in the scope to be picked up, set aside, have the banks reinforced, and a new bridge support system installed, then reinstall the existing bridge. That was the original scope. While we were investigating and designing that, the structural engineer reviewed the bridge, did some analysis and calculations, and found that it does not meet current structural standards. Feels very solid. It's been there for a good long time. Doesn't seem to have any rot or anything, but it doesn't calculate out to the right strength requirements. So we began looking at options to remedy that. We looked at reinforcing the existing bridge, designing and building a similar bridge of similar dimensional lumber materials, purchasing pre-engineered wood bridge kit and assembling it on site. We could also purchase a pre-assembled wood bridge kit or a steel truss bridge similar to what we installed in Curtis Park. And after evaluating all the different costs and uncertainties of those options, we selected the steel truss bridge. And again, similar to the Curtis Park project, we need to commit to a particular bridge before we can finalize design of the bridge support structure. And so that's what I'm asking for tonight, is to make that commitment, place the order, place the deposit, so we can get the final engineered bridge drawings, so we can finalize design of the support and stream bank reinforcements.
Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Fordyce. Just one quick question. So after we finalize a plan and the actual design of the bridge, does that mean you come back to us for approval then?
This would be approving the full $12,900 purchase for the bridge.
So we'd give you the latitude and leeway to finalize the plan internally and then to install the bridge?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Ivey.
Thank you, Mayor. A question for Mr. Fordyce and then a comment. I didn't look at the specifications that closely, but is the bridge that we are going to buy wider than the current Boley Bridge or narrower?
It is slightly wider. The new bridge will be 6 feet wide, a 6-foot clear span, which is the minimum ADA for a bridge.
And a comment, as some of you watching in the audience or on television may not know, that the Boley Bridge is named after a mayor and councilor of our sister city, Brecon, Wales, Arthur Boley. And the bridge is really a symbol. It's a very important symbol of Mr. Boley's reaching out to the city of Saline and becoming a partner with Saline and spreading goodwill. And I think it's important that we restore this bridge because it is a symbol, and it's important to remember that Mr. Boley's efforts resulted in our having this great relationship with our sister city in Brecon.
Yep, he was active for about 40 years. Anyhow, Mr. Rhodes.
I hate to see the Boley Bridge as it's currently constructed go, because I have fond memories of that as I met my bride at the center of that bridge as we were headed off there for a wedding down in Mill Pond Park. But I wonder if that bridge could possibly be relocated into Mill Pond and used as part of a play structure where the structural requirements over water wouldn't apply. Is that a possibility?
It's certainly a possibility. I haven't put a lot of thought towards the future use of it, but I realize there's some possibilities there. We intend to remove it in one piece and set it aside for some future consideration.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Perhaps an auction.
I'll buy it.
Mr. Long.
To satisfy the curiosity, I'm sure, of the Celtic Festival folks out there and myself and others, and assuming that this will be approved, Mr. Fordyce, when will construction, it would not conflict, I assume, with the Celtic Festival itself, or
Right.
set up in that?
Yeah, all the construction will be after the Celtic Festival.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll save the plaque, right?
Right. We'll definitely save the plaque, look at refurbishing it and attaching it to the new bridge, and if that doesn't work, we'll make up a new plaque.
So when you say a steel truss bridge, the pictures you have of examples, it looks like the steel is underneath, and the actual on the sides will be wood. Is that correct?
No. The whole truss structure is steel, so the whole side wall of the bridge is made of structural steel members. The decking
These pictures that you have as attachments are steel?
They are steel.
Yep.
The decking, the walking surface is wood.
Or the banister side, the sides of it?
The sides are steel. Yes. It's very similar to the Curtis Park Bridge. The decking material is different, but it's just different species of wood.
Okay. Mr. Law?
One question, Mr. Fordyce, on the steel. I noticed the Curtis Park Bridge, after it was installed, and after some weathering, it would bleed on the side of the walls, and to me, it looked really unattractive, so I don't know. And it's since I've been back there, or looked last there, it was all cleared up. It's like it's been repainted, the walls on the... So I hope that this won't be the same situation, because that really looks unattractive.
It is the same finish. It's a very durable, low-maintenance finish. It's a intentionally rusting surface that then seals off. One of the downsides of it is you do get that bleeding look. The way we're mounting this one, there will not be that large concrete wall there to stain. This is going to be a more naturalized look. The bridge itself will be supported on just 4 driven piers, and then there'll be some stone and earthwork to reinforce the banks. So there'll be much less structure there, and any staining dripping off the bridge should be much less noticeable.
Okay. Thank you.
One more question. Has the Parks Commission been involved with this at all? Are they aware?
They've been involved in the CMI project and in the prior scope reduction. I did talk to them that this was a possibility, that the bridge might need to be replaced, but not in any kind of formal approval of replacement of the bridge.
Might need to, you really should run it past them, because it's really also their jurisdiction, so.
Okay. And in regards to whether this is CMI grant project or not, it is not technically in the scope of the project right now, but I do plan on amending that scope, and there is a tiny chance that we might be able to get some additional grant funds to pay for this.
Okay. Did you? Sorry. Okay. So can you get this to the Parks Commission? They meet next Tuesday, is that right? No, tomorrow. Can you maybe get somebody to get it to them to look at? Further discussion on this motion, Mr. Law?
Should we, based on what the Parks Commission say, just hold off and maybe approve this?
Is there a timing issue for this?
Crunch thing, or we?
One day won't make a difference, if I can get onto Parks tomorrow.
So if we say
but
subject to their approval or something like that?
Yeah.
Or how do you want it? Who's the mover? Mr. Ivy moved this.
I would suggest, knowing that when we did discuss this, I believe in December, that the consensus was that they were in support, the commission was in support of either fixing the current bridge or replacing it. I would say that we need to give the commission an opportunity to review the April 12th memo that Mr. Fordyce wrote before we approve this. I don't think there's going to be any objection to it, but as a formality, I think that's what we should do, because we owe it to the commission to review it.
Okay. Well, so we can postpone this to the May 2nd meeting, or is that going to be a time problem for you?
That potentially puts a time crunch on it, because I've got to get the bridge to finish their design before I can get the structural guy to finish his design, and then I still need to move forward and get it out to bid. I mean, if you could approve tonight pending and defer to Parks Commission, I think that would help speed the process up a little bit, and then I at least have a chance of walking it on tomorrow.
So, Mr. Ivy, it's your motion. Do you want
The
to?
verbiage, I guess, would then be amended to say pending approval by review of the Parks Commission. Is that satisfactory, Mr. Rhodes?
I would accept that. based on the information about the likelihood that they're going to be okay with it anyway. Otherwise, I'd be concerned about putting Parks Commission having the ability to rescind a council approval.
Exactly.
Well, I apologize, I probably should not have put this on the agenda before it went to Parks. I don't know, that it's probably an oversight. We've done this before, and it's not been a good thing to do, because that really is their jurisdiction first. And while I appreciate that you've, talked to them in broad terms, there's a lot to this as far as, I mean, it's a pretty significant change to what is currently there.
Right.
So right now, we have amendment to the motion that this would be approved pending approval of the Parks Commission to authorize. So that's moved by Ivy and second by Rhodes. Is there further discussion on this motion? No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Do we have any commissioner committee reports from council members? Today.
Oh.
Mr. Law?
You heard from the Celtic Festival and some of the latest information from there, so just that steps are being moved to, as I think one of the speakers came up and mentioned, Mr. Rash, right, mentioned about the signs that will be located on either end of the city that show the donations from the corporations. The Planning Commission gave that go-ahead. So that's good news to see that visibly the Celtic Festival is there and is making headway in that department. So also from the Planning Commission, if I could stay on that, is the master plan was approved. Should be coming to City Council, I would think, in May sometime. I don't know if it's the May 2nd meeting or it may be on the 16th, but one of those two, I would assume. And there will be, as per suggested by the mayor, Mr. Lewan is going to make a change, or before the documents presented to council, the latest, as best as he can, of the 2010 census figures, because those certainly play somewhat of a large role into what the master plan, at least portions of it, how it affects it, population and all those things. So that will be, it wasn't before the commission when we met about it, but it will hopefully be there for council to look at when it comes to us. That's all I have.
Mr. Morrow?
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the Saline Area Senior Center, I'm very pleased to announce that on April 28th, we will be hosting our second health care forum regarding the health care reform legislation that passed in the previous Congress and was signed into law last year by President Obama. In the fall, we had Dr. Cook, a physician from U of M, come to speak about the legislation. He's very knowledgeable, very objective. He will be joining us again. Again, that is at the Senior Center on April 28th at 4 p.m. We would like people to RSVP, and it's open to citizens of all ages. So all you need to do is email or call the Senior Center. And I can tell you, based on the people who attended our previous forum, it was very well received. People thought the information was objective, it was clear, it was concise, and they really enjoyed it. And then in addition to that, this Wednesday is our monthly membership meeting and luncheon, and it's not too late to RSVP. So if you're a member of the Senior Center or if you're not a member of the Senior Center, we would welcome you at both events. Thank you.
Further commission committee reports? I just report the fire board adopted the budget for next year, and BDA met last couple times, I think, this month.
Tuesday.
And the week before, and we meet the week before, I think.
I'm not on BDA, so.
And I actually put this under just another discussion item, but since we're talking about commission reports, as most of you are aware, there's been a lot of discussion over the last year. Saline applied for the associate level at the Michigan Main Street, and there's great interest in moving forward in this community to having a Saline Main Street Association applying at the select level in December, and there has been some momentum as our city manager mentioned in his communique, there has been an application, the group has incorporated, they can't be named Main Street yet because they haven't received select status, but they did apply for articles of incorporation to move forward in the 501c3 status. And under the name Saline Historic Downtown Alliance. Cindy Zupko was not able to make it tonight, but I wanted to ask council, because she had planned on coming a couple weeks ago, but we had a bunch of presentations on the agenda, and so I wanted to know if council would like to have her come on the 25th to spend about 15 minutes to go over where the program is and what the next steps are, or just wait until the May 2nd work session and have it on the May 2nd agenda. Do we have a, does it matter? What do you, Mr. Morrow?
I think the sooner the better, Mayor, and I would enthusiastically encourage you to invite her to make a presentation. I know that Mr. Rhodes and I also attended that first meeting of the, say the name one more time, I'm terrible with
Saline
acronyms.
Historic Downtown Alliance.
There we go. And even though I can't remember the name, there was a lot of enthusiasm and passion in the room that night. And so I think it would be great if she could be here at the first meeting in May. Is that what you were thinking?
Well, our next meeting is our budget work session on the 25th. So she is planning on making a presentation, but she wanted an opportunity to attend a work session to talk in detail about, to really, because a presentation has somewhat of a time constraint and some interaction constraint. So the idea would be to do a work session and also a presentation for council and the general public.
I think both would be great.
Do you care if it comes on the 25th, or can she just come the same one night and not have to come 2 weeks in a row? Mr. Burgoyne.
Well, on the May 2nd, it would be useful to have a resolution from the City Council in support of them moving ahead because of that timing. So it seems as though if she came to the work session, that would assist that.
On the 25th or the
Yes.
2nd? Because we have work sessions on both.
The work session the week prior.
Okay. Mr. Ivy, did you?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My thinking is that, unfortunately, I'm looking at this from my personal aspect, and I will not be available. I'm not going to be able to attend the work session on the 25th. However, of course, I will be here for the meeting on May 2nd, and I would appreciate it if we had her come in on the May 2nd work session. And I agree with Mr. Burgoyne that then when we get into the regular meeting, then we will be apprised of the situation.
Mr. Kirba.
Is it the intent to have her presentation, though, recorded, so it can also be...
Yeah, she's going to do two. Because, she did one for the
Right,
EDC.
right, but I didn't know if, because it's a work session, we generally don't record those, so...
She would do the work session, and then, because we're going to have items on the agenda regarding that.
Okay.
So she would actually do a presentation also at the beginning of the May 2nd meeting, too. So I think we're going to put it all on May 2nd and just put together some information for the agenda. And also, EDC boards met last week, and we have preliminary budgets, although some are need a little tweaking. So, so do we have reports and other announcements? No reports, no announcements? Yeah, for the Celtic Festival, when we met last week, there was some interest in making sure that everybody, based on the feedback that was expressed by council in March, that we had as much information as possible presented to council regarding the budget, also the status of sponsorship, the Arts Alliance grants. There's minutes attached to the package, and then also, most importantly, as I mentioned earlier, the open, well, not most importantly, but keep in mind opening ceremony at 11 o'clock. And for those of you that run in 5Ks, put your kilts on. So, I don't know. And then finally, we have the House bill. There's a resolution that Diane has been really wonderful to start. We did call the league. I think all of you got the information from Michigan Municipal League regarding the latest and greatest status of what's going on up in Lansing, and how we're, again, being put sort of in a backwards position, which is that while the governor's trying to do some really great programs for addressing consolidation, service sharing, accountability, transparency, and controlling compensation costs, the efforts that we have made to date, which are very significant, would not, as currently proposed in House Bill 4274, provide us an opportunity to access revenue sharing that they are currently talking about withholding. This is a significant change from what we were expecting. After we talked with our representative, we were under the impression that this would be something that we would be able to access. And I did call Summer last week, and they currently aren't, they're working on doing resolutions, but Sue Jeffers was the person on staff, and she's now retired, and they haven't really addressed that. I strongly recommended to her that the league really look at that, because what Todd and I talked about doing is having a resolution, and we could have a template statewide, and then we could put within that template, for example, under where it says qualifying criteria, communities, well, one is like produce plans to cooperate and consolidate services. You know, we have a regional fire district. We've had that for almost 40 years, and we're not going to get credit for that. I mean, that's just sort of crazy. So all these efforts that we make every year, you know, we had this whole conversation at the work session about, so what are we doing this year to look at how we could collaborate and share equipment at DPW, or, you know, this is a conversation we have every year, and it's of great concern that this House bill is not addressing it. I also saw our representative after the Saline salutes, and he said the legislation is going to be going really fast. Should be doing something in the next 2 weeks, which is very alarming. Because this is a lot. I mean, as is addressed here, the loss of $2.9 million in revenue sharing money over the last 11 years. That's a significant amount of money for this community, and to not even, to be put in this position is just really crazy. Because if he's trying to get better behavior, it should be helpful to get to, really address what we've already been doing. And, we've done, I don't know. So Todd and I, we were going to talk about trying to do this resolution and then put already what we've been doing as far as the fire district and the savings accounts, and what else do we talk about? If you want to jump in. And then also, I will tell you this, that Summer did say, I talked to her this morning, and she did say the governor's coming out with a proposal to the House bill that is a little friendlier and hopefully will address some of these concerns. And I think if enough municipalities address this at the state level, that hopefully the language will be softened and help us address, best practices that have been already ongoing. So, sorry, but we'll go on there. So.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll just add some of the other things we've done as far as Clemis, which is working for police, all the technology that we share in the region, the partnerships we have with the schools, whether it's sharing of the salt facility, road salt, or our Phase 2 stormwater permitting. And there's other. I mean, we utilize our plumbing inspector from Pittsfield Township. All these things. And again, the concern, the problem that I have with it is that we've been doing a lot of these things, as have a number of other communities have been doing these things for the last several years, because as we all know, it's been tough in Michigan, not just the last 2 or 3 years, but about the last dozen years. And so a lot of communities have been doing these things, have been sharing, have been collaborating, and now it's like we're getting slapped in the face because, well, it's not good enough, I agree, we'll continue to do more. But to say they won't count or consider the stuff we've already worked hard to do over the last several years, myself personally, I think that's not the proper thing to do.
Well, the thing about statutory revenue sharing is, the agreement Proposal A took away some of our abilities to generate local taxes. In exchange for that, taking away that ability for us to generate some additional local revenues, statutory revenue sharing was supposed to go into place, and now what they're doing is talking about taking it away, and then we don't have another tool. That's the problem. There are no other tools, and there's no conversation about what our tool, if there's going to be other tools. And between that and the Proposal A cap, we're really getting compromised. So we're working on putting together a resolution that would be submitted to our legislators and the governor. And also, Summer asked that we submit whatever we put together to the league, so they have that for their file when they do a lot of testimony. And they're working really hard to try to make sure that everybody understands how serious the ramifications are for the direction they're heading in right now. And this is really significant. So we just want to make sure that you had a chance to read this. If you have any comments or feedback, Mr. Law?
Well, if only anything, Mayor, this will certainly, hopefully, unite many municipalities to raise their voices and say how serious an issue this is and how it can, as you say, seriously impact municipalities unjustly. I know the governor's trying to deal with the situation from an economic sense as to how Michigan is hurting and how we have to get onto the footing, but this is not the way to go around it. And certainly to, as Mr. Campbell mentioned about slapping municipalities in the face for doing things that curb costs and collaborate with municipalities in other regions, I think is just totally wrong. So I wholeheartedly support this resolution. And, well, MML is going to get, going to see if they, you know, the money that we pay for them is going to hopefully result in something.
So the other, also, if you want to call our legislators and urge them to not, support this direction, I think that besides the actual resolution, I think it would be really helpful for them to get personal calls from us so that they know how important it is. And
or emails,
for our constituents, we're continually getting forced into this smaller and smaller space that, it's sort of interesting that the first bill that came out of the House was the Emergency Financial Manager bill, and they continue to take away more money, and they've already taken away, as I said, $3 million. That was an agreement, so it's just sort of shocking. And, we are doing all the, the issues around the defined contribution and the health care. We're doing the health care, the HSA. We're doing a lot of programs that we may not talk a lot about on a regular basis, but we spend a lot of time trying to identify opportunities to save dollars. And I know, Todd, you've had some COG come in and do that financial benchmarking. I mean, there's been a lot of different areas we've looked at over especially the last couple of years, because it's just been more and more constrained. So I don't know, Mr. Gebhardt, do you have any comments?
I was just going to say I agree. I think what a lot of this is approaching is that it's rewarding communities that didn't plan. It's rewarding communities that were poor planners and trying to deal with, we're stuck in the middle because we were advanced and thinking ahead what we were doing. So, and the other concern is I think this whole approach is just collapsing community identity, and it's trying to remove a lot of the local authority and such. And so all of this is coming together as between the emergency financial manager, between taking away, enforcing these things to occur. It's just going to look less and less effective for us to manage our own business and our own identity. And I agree. I think whatever we have, including even the CARES millage, which was a community where we brought together and figured out a way to help pay for things, we're not going to get any kind of recognition for that. And it's just unfair to see that someone else can now go ahead and put something in place like that and see that as an award. It's just not something that I think is working in advance. So,
any further discussion? Mr. Morrow?
Yeah, I'm confused on one point. Are you requesting, or are we trying to draft a resolution that specifically cites examples of what we've done to?
Well, this was our first. We asked Diane to start this morning, and this is our first stab at it. This is definitely going to be more flexed out, and I actually have been sort of messing around with it since I got it this afternoon. But I think we will be inserting some specific cases for example, the regional fire district. That's a multi-jurisdiction.
Is it our goal then to hopefully have something ready to approve on the 2nd of May?
Actually, what I think we'd like is to have everybody here support the fact that we're doing a resolution and get it out and up there as soon as possible, because that's going to be too late.
Yeah, I enthusiastically support the resolution. I think, God bless our governor, I think that some of his policies, especially relating to municipalities, are not particularly well thought out, and he doesn't have a concrete understanding of the ramifications, and that's disappointing to me. And I think that citing some specific examples would be great. I would also encourage us to cite many of the things that we did during our budget negotiations and the subsequent approval of our budget in 2009, when we outsourced our payroll services, we consolidated code enforcement and building inspecting. I think those were some pretty profound things. And then from just looking at this in the final clause there, it says, oppose House Bill 4274 and its limiting effects. I think our clerk does an outstanding job with this, but I think limiting is a very polite euphemism, and I would recommend something a little more profound, a little more robust.
We'll continue to work on this and hopefully have something to get, we'll send it out to council before we send it up to Lansing, but hopefully by Wednesday, we'll have something for council to make sure. But yeah, the idea was to have some specific cases. And really, this is the House, because my understanding from the original Governor Snyder's was that, and that's what our representative also, he told us that it was going to be, that he thought that, current practices would be included, so there would be an opportunity there. So we are hoping that the language gets softened and that, sort of like the brownfield credit, which was going to be abolished. It's like, well, okay, well, this is really why we do this, and this is a program that works, and doing it, setting it up the way that you're proposing doesn't really work, and it's really not going to benefit the way you really need to be doing that. So, so if you have any comments or questions about this, if you can get back to Diane, I would say by midday tomorrow, and Todd and I will continue to work on it and have something to go out to council on Wednesday. Okay?
So you'll be sending us essentially a final draft on Wednesday? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then the other item on the agenda is, I seem to have lost my notes. I think I mentioned to you, the governor, working with the business leaders from Michigan, has been looking at how to develop regional economies and what makes, what can make us more productive as a state regarding regional economies. And I went to Lansing for the Ann Arbor, Washington County regional economy. There were 8 regional economies that shared their unique assets, and this was a report of the meeting that we had last week. And basically it wasn't. I mean, there was a lot of learning as far as what the assets are. There's Battle Creek was there, and Grand Rapids, and Flint was there, Traverse City. So there was and Detroit was there. So we talked about the different regional assets, but then in the morning, that's what we did, is talk about each of our regions, and then in the afternoon, we broke out and split up between, so I was sitting with people from different regions, and then we talked about what we learned and what we thought were our regional strengths and competitive advantages, and the strategies or economy shaping, talent development, which is basically business-friendly, community economy shaping, talent development, which is workforce development, education, retraining, and then quality of place, which is this whole issue of what we're talking about, not having money to do infrastructure and quality of life, initiatives. So I think what's happening here is it's circling back around, and hopefully this conversation will move forward where, yes, it does make sense to invest in the infrastructure in urban areas. We really stress that, meaning where not the greenfields, but really the brownfields, where there's already a lot of urban activity, but it needs to be strengthened because there hasn't been funding available. So I just want to let everybody know that this is what came out of it. And then my understanding is there's going to be a follow-up meeting in the summer. It was a pretty interesting workshop, and the people from Brookings are very familiar with metropolitan issues, and they did a really great job of talking about some of the strengths that Michigan has. And I'll try to get that piece together, too, for you guys. I just want to make sure that you had a copy of this. So, do we have anything else under discussion? Under public comment, under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who'd like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record.
Hi, I am Larry Osterling with the Saline Area Chamber of Commerce. My comments are very brief. I realize they're running late, but I just wanted to reiterate again that I do appreciate all the support we got from an event last Friday at Saline Salutes. It was, I really do appreciate the support of those of you that were there. I'm getting, of course, we could always get comments after the event, and this one, we got lots of very positive comments. Appreciate the support of the city and greater Saline community. I've done a lot of Saline Salutes now, I guess, but this one in particular I think was moving. When entire families come up to you and thank you for coming, and I'm sure they did it to some of you too. I think it really makes a difference. Like anything else, and like anything else we've discussed here, it always gets a little more financially difficult to put on certain types of events, but this one is, I think we believe in, and it's important to recognize our Citizen of the Year, our Lifetime Achievers, and the Youth of the Year. So I do also appreciate the support that we've gotten for this event from those of you that are local, not only our local, but our statewide political figures come and support this, as well as resolutions from high-up officials. So it meant a lot, and I do want to reiterate again how much we appreciate that. We got a lot of support from the media this time, from AnnArbor.com and from the Saline Reporter. Wrote up really nice articles, and I think it's a great thing for our community. I think we're on the right track. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other public comment? Is there any other business to come before the City Council? Our next meeting is April 25th, budget work session, and we have a budget work session on May 2nd at 6, and then a regular meeting on May 2nd at 7:30. We need a motion to convene into closed session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation. We will not Council will not reconvene into regular session at the conclusion of the closed session.
Move to
Roll
convene
call
into
vote.
closed session.
Second.
Move Morrow, second Rhodes. Second Gearboss, sorry. Sorry about that.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilmember Tahar is absent. Councilmember Ivy?
Yes.
Councilmember Law?
Yes.
Councilmember Morrow?
Yes.
Councilmember Gearbock?
Yes.
Yes. The meeting's adjourned at 9:27 to convene into closed session.